Okay, greetings everybody. Dave DeWalt here. I am the founder and CEO of NightDragon. I want to just welcome everybody to our latest episode of NightVision. If you haven't seen our little preface video there, we're working on our designs, Charlie and Kelly. So we're going to bring a band in one of these days and we'll do late night together as part of the Fireside chat. But we're having a great time, and thank you everybody for joining us, and really appreciate you coming a part of this. If you haven't been a part of the NightVision series before, it's all about education and information and sharing. And today I just have two amazing guests in Kelly Bissell and Charlie Bell from Microsoft. But before I introduce the two of them and their careers, I really want to talk for a minute about Microsoft. And, of course, Charlie and Kelly are recent executives at Microsoft, but for those who are in the cyber industry like me for 20 years, the story of Microsoft is incredible. I've had a chance to work alongside Microsoft since my early days in the cyber and national security markets, all the way back to Bill Gates's days and through Ballmer's days and now Satya's days. And it's incredible to watch the rise of Microsoft. And it's always had an incredible culture of trust and safety. All of us in the industry have had a respect for Microsoft, but to watch its growth, both in terms of customers, intelligence, response, revenues now, is an incredible story. And I just want to read you a couple facts because, for most of you who haven't followed it, you probably don't know all of this, but going all the way back to 2001, when some of the biggest threats were targeting Microsoft, Code Red, I Love You viruses, for those of us in antivirus space, we know these pretty well, NIMDA and others. But 20 years ago, Bill Gates announced a trustworthy computing initiative and really putting trust and safety first 20 years ago. This is back when cybersecurity market was a handful of billions of dollars of revenue and wasn't as big of a threat as certainly it is now. And it's just incredible watching the growth. In 2003, Microsoft launched Patch Tuesday, which many of us are very familiar with. And it's been around now for almost 20 years, which is incredible as well. And then in 2008, publishing the Security Development Lifecycle, which is really integrating security into every phase of DevSec and Ops, all the way back to 2008. And then as we really watched Satya Nadella come in as CEO, we watched a string of acquisitions, the Avalon acquisition in cloud security, Secure Islands technology in 2015, Hexadite in 2017, CyberX, IoT and OT security in 2020. And then in 2021, Microsoft really released for the first time, we really saw the size and scale of Microsoft's revenues. And at that time, the company had exceeded 10 billion in cybersecurity revenue and growing 40% year over year. So if you think about a 10 billion revenue company growing 40% a year on an absolute dollars basis, it's incredible, but it doesn't stop there. Microsoft continued to launch initiatives around talent and education. They acquired Refirm Labs in IoT, a pretty important company that I'm familiar with, Risk IQ, which is another really important company, CloudKnox, if you followed that acquisition. And of course, the company then this past spring really announced the real totality of its business of 15 billion. The company surpassed 15 billion in revenues and accelerated its growth from 21 to 22, growing 45%. So, at this point, Microsoft just about sees everything. It sees telemetry, the threats, the words like Mystic and Dart, which we'll talk about a little bit, have almost become household names in terms of the intelligence center and the response teams and the things that Microsoft's doing around the world, seeing 600 billion security events every month, blocking 6 billion threats on endpoints a year, blocking 30 billion email threats. And just to see the size and scale of customers, almost 1 billion annual subscriptions using the products on endpoints. And getting into hundreds of thousands of customers using the product worldwide in nearly every country around the world. So incredible growth and trajectory. And today I'm really proud and honored to have two incredible gentlemen that I've known now both at Microsoft. First I'll introduce Charlie Bell. Charlie, I know you're 13 months into Microsoft now, 23 plus years at Amazon, AWS. and really a big part of growing that business, now a $50 billion plus run rate business as well, really helping to engineer and grow. And we'll let you talk about that in just a second. But our other guest here is Kelly Bissell. Kelly just joined about 8 months ago as well, joining Microsoft, running a lot of the services and managed service for Microsoft, an enormous business as well. And Kelly and I go way back too, obviously to his Accenture days, where I just saw Accenture announce they had reached $6 billion in revenue as well. A lot of that due to Kelly's growth and leadership at Accenture. And before that, Kelly was at Deloitte for, I think, 12, 13 years as well. So Kelly and Charlie, thank you so much for joining me. Maybe Charlie and Kelly, will you, maybe Charlie first, talk a little bit about why Microsoft? Why did you join? You could have done anything, Charlie, with all the success that you've had. You know, here you are, you know, part of Microsoft. You know, tell the reasons why you joined. I'd love to hear it too.
Well, maybe the best way to describe is go back to when I made the decision. I mean, it was January 21. Jeff had just told us he was going to step away. And I'm sort of thinking in the moment, I'm thinking, wow, what's the world going to be like? You know, I was having a ball on the cloud. There's no question. It was a lot of fun. And you know, we've done a lot and there's still a lot to do. But I realized in that moment, like that was probably, if I was going to do something else or do something new, that was the time to do it, because I probably got one more thing I could do. You know, I tend to stick with things that I'm excited about for a long period of time. I like doing big things. And I started thinking about, well, if I did something else, what would that be? And I got to tell you, one of the things that I could see running a cloud is the real problem that was growing in security. It was, you know, watching customers struggle, you know, with what was developing out there. I mean, the world of, you know, adversary, they innovate and they're fast moving, they're organizing, and so I started thinking about that problem. The more I thought about it, the more it grew on me, because I realized it's kind of the mother of all problems. If you don't solve that problem, you don't get to do any other innovation. I mean, it's actually, I think, the motivation with Microsoft. You said 2 decades ago, Microsoft really got into security. I think Bill understood that, hey, if we're going to innovate and create all kinds of great technology for people, if it can be turned around and used as a weapon, you know, we don't get to start. You know, people can't move forward. So I looked at it and I thought, you know, this is the thing to do, because the world needs this, and I have some experience. I could apply what I know and help. And so the more I thought about it, well, where would I do this? And I thought about, well, maybe I start a company. And then I realized that given the scale of the problem, the right approach would be, you know, doing something at scale. And I also realized, hey, this is an end-to-end problem. It's not, you know, I thought about doing it. Could I do it in AWS? Well, infrastructure as a service is great, but it's only part of it. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wow, you know, Microsoft has a really good spot here. You know, because I think you want to be a provider as well as a solution provider for security, because I think there's a lot of this that has to happen in the shift left world and just setting everybody up to be safe. It was kind of funny because I was sort of noodling it and talking to my wife, and she goes, well, why don't you talk to Satya? And I said, really? She said, yeah, I'll call him. So anyway, I ended up over there like a couple of weeks later on a Saturday talking to Satya. And the thing that really got me was, you know, he's a missionary about this. Like you kind of described how Microsoft thinks about it. I mean, he saw it as a really big problem in the world. He'd already created what we call a customer solutions area around it. And the actual engineering was going on in a couple of groups, and he felt, hey, you know, what a good thing if we could bring it together. And so the more we talked about it, he didn't sell me. It was sort of like, you know, the more I talked to him, the more I realized it was the right thing to do. So yeah, I came over, and I got to say, I was, as much as I thought I knew what Microsoft was like, the reality on the inside was just exciting. Like you mentioned some of the things, Mystic, you know, watching what they do with nation states. I mean, it's been really exciting. It's been the best year of my life.
Charlie, you only have 24 more to go to pass your AWS experience. So you're only in year 1. So we got a little more time to go. Thank you for sharing that. Kelly, how about you? You just joined 8 months ago. You know, big move for you, living in Atlanta, you know, now part of a, well, global company, obviously, but Seattle as well. You know, what made you decide? That's a big decision for you as well.
Yeah, a little similar path of Charlie in that everything was going great, at Accenture. I was proud of what, we built, but something was really gnawing at me. And I didn't think that the market was serving the customers like they deserved to be served, if you will. And at the same, everything was kind of coming together at one time. And I was trying to think, what's next? What's my next chapter that I'm going to solve some big complex problems? Kind of like what Charlie was talking about. And I was trying to figure out, should I go to Microsoft or not? And I was waffling, if you will. And then Charlie called me out of the blue. Charlie and Brett. I don't know if you remember this, Charlie.
I do.
And I thought, okay, you got Charlie, who's a master at platform building, truly innovative and all that. And then what I've done in the last 25 years, plus Vasu, plus Andy Elder, plus RT Bokar, these are really incredible people that have been assembled, if you will. And at that point, I realized that, wow, if there's any company on the planet that can actually transform this security market, it's Microsoft. And so I was pretty excited to be part of it. And in 8 months, I'm still learning every day, but I'm also really excited about where we're going with threat intelligence and some of the products and how we're going to really serve our customers better by cutting the cost of security, if you will, by helping them collapse, if you will, all those disparate tools. So we got a little ways to go, but I'm really excited about where we're going.
Kelly and Charlie, something that I've been impressed with, and I'm hoping you can maybe elaborate from insiders now at Microsoft, but for a guy who's watched Microsoft for 20 years in security, I've always been impressed with the voice from the top. Trust, safety, security is something that like the company breathes. Like it's like air and water. Like I felt like that all the time. And whenever there's an attack or something that happens, and yeah, there's criticism, but it's almost like a personal thing that Microsoft takes to get better. How do you guys see the culture that Satya has, that you guys bring, that X factor that, a lot of companies I don't think have, that I think Microsoft has?
You want me to start, Kelly? I'll
Yeah, go for it, Charlie.
First thing I'll say is, again, it was one of the things I got in that first meeting with Satya is he's really empathetic with customers. He thinks about where they are and what their problems are and the pain. And it permeates the culture at Microsoft. I mean, if customers are going through a security event or there's something going on out there, people are moving, and it's because they care. It's I've always believed in missionaries. When you're working on something, you want people that are in it for a bigger reason than just a paycheck or just a thing to do. And that's what these people are. It's I love coming to work every day. I love it when we could be dealing with the most mundane thing. A lot of security is mundane. You're doing a lot of operational stuff just to make sure the products are safe and secure, and the gusto that they go at it with. I'd say that culture of customer empathy, it really plays well in security, because you feel it with your customers.
Yeah, same. I would say three things really. One is that empathy that Charlie's talking about, but the sense of mission, purpose. The second thing is I was pretty shocked, if you will. The first time I joined an SLT, that senior leadership team call, because I've done hundreds of them, and I've been part of tons of boards, if you will, but never have I seen or been heard, watched, if you will, Satya and Scott Guthrie and Charlie and everybody dig into the guts of a particular problem. And to me, as a security practitioner, that actually gave me a warm and fuzzy, if you will, as opposed to talk about fluffy stuff, if you will. So that very first SLT call, I thought, man, I'm in the right spot. So now I just roll up our sleeves and try to figure out how do we, with this sense of purpose and mission, how do we move as fast as we can? So that's the culture, if you will.
I love it. I love it. And thank you for sharing that. Sometimes that emotional side, like for me as a CEO and leader over the years, watching that, and I'll never forget, one time I was invited, Satya invited me to the Microsoft CEO Summit, and I know you guys know that well. And I remember sitting in the green room next to Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, and they're asking me questions about security. And it was just an incredible moment, like pinch me, because here I am. And this was back a ways. And, just back then, security was really important, all the way up to level where CEOs of Fortune 50 companies are coming to a summit. And here I am, a part of that. So I feel that and I resonate with it. Will you two talk a little bit, just for a minute, for the audience, just your organizations, and then, kind of leadership, because I think cyber talent is one of the most challenging areas, keeping talent, hiring talent. Microsoft's one of the biggest employers. It's the biggest security company in the world. Tell about your organization, and then maybe just a little bit of leadership and how you're dealing with talent for a second, because a lot of jobs out there and a lot of openings and issues we have on that front. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go, Kelly.
I'm always going to defer to you, Charlie. So keep.
I've had a little more time with the org to do some things, just a little bit more. Well, the first thing is, of course, I took in engineering teams that were in different groups. And I have to say, by the way, Scott Guthrie, Rajesh Shah, they're awesome. They run respectively the Azure world and the Office 365 and user productivity world. And they were really invested in security. So I inherited some great teams, but I realized that anytime you have teams that are, disparate parts of the organization, there's an opportunity to bring some things together and focus on what the customer problem is. And so I did some reorg there, and my organization principle is that, you're not going to, I'm as a leader, I'm not going to tell everybody what to do. They've got to figure that out in their relationships with their product and their customers and the problems they're trying to solve. And so their motivation, how much they feel invested in the thing they're working on. So I'm a huge fan of just lining things up around a customer problem and letting that, self-actualization, hey, I'm going to solve this problem, be the wind that carries everybody forward. I think one of the other things I did is looking at the space and understanding how important data and AI is in solving it, because you've got to have the end-to-end capability that lives everywhere customers have technology. And so you're going to have endpoint and cloud and database and all this kind of stuff, across the board. But you also need to have a central view, the brain, I call it, of the data, so that you can begin to think end to end and take in everything that you're seeing everywhere, and then take action everywhere. Because we all know adversaries move laterally. They get in one spot and they keep moving. And so I reorganized the data side under John Lambert, who run Mystic. He was, John's brilliant. He's part of that story. You probably, Dave, John, and he was, very much kind of looking at this problem 20 years ago and saying, we've got to work from the adversaries backwards. We got to start with what they do and then start thinking about the whole problem. And so, so having that sort of one brain organization, I think, has been really important. But yeah, I'm really excited about AI. We're doing it in a big way, and that's a big part of the investment in organization as well.
I want to get to AI in just a minute, Charlie, and a couple other trends. But Kelly, tell about your organization for a minute, the services organization at Microsoft. A lot of us, we know Microsoft's a big organization, but we don't really understand it. So whatever words you can say there would be great.
Yeah, there have been many customers who said, I don't really understand the Microsoft organization, but you ask about talent, which is really an important question. And, it's interesting that half of the leadership team are made up of women. And that's important. So we actually bring different perspectives, a diverse view, as well as sort of different ways of attacking a problem, if you will. And I think that is foundational. And so even as we really seek new talent, we're not just going to the stereotypical schools like Carnegie Mellon and these, which are really important, but also as a company, we've invested in more than 100 community colleges. Like, how do we get that workforce moving and bringing into the workforce to change not only their lives, but really help solve this labor shortage that we have in the cyber that, Dave, I know that you've talked about for a long time. So that diversity of skill, background, gender, training, and so forth is really critical as part of our strategy and our DNA. But on the services side, we do really just three basic things. And this is really kind of maybe what we're known for that service side. One is we help our customers implement our tools for them through the lens of their industry. So the way airlines work is very different from oil and gas, very different from pharmaceuticals. So we really help solve those company problems and regulatory issues through the lens of that company. The second thing we do is we have DART, which is that incident response team. So when customers have trouble, we have that SWAT team, if you will, that is on ground. We've been working with Ukraine since day one. We've been in Albania since day one, and many other countries. And that's where that threat intelligence that Charlie was talking about with John Lambert and our teams work hand in glove to solve these problems. And then moving forward is how do we use threat intelligence as a helper, if you will, so that we actually see the attacks coming before they get there. Because we don't want to be reactive, but we want to really help our customers really mitigate these risks as they're forming. So that's really our services arm.
Kelly, while we're talking about that for a minute, and Charlie, you add on to, there's a lot of talk about, the threat environment right now, particularly with the Russian-Ukrainian conflicts, with ransomware sort of coming back into our world. We had a little reprieve there, but 2020 and 2021 was big ransomware years. Of course, we always are facing espionage and some adversaries that are challenging. What would you two say we're at in a threat environment right now? I mean, how do you think about that? I mean, it's always constant up and to the right. We know that the cyber domain is tricky and challenging, but where do you think we're at as we're coming out of the summer of 2022?
Yeah. You may start, Charlie, or you want to go for it?
No, you go ahead.
All right. Look, I right now we've been tracking more than 260 attacker groups and see how they form, because Dave, as you know, they form and they disband and they reformulate somewhere else, if you will. And so we're tracking this and seeing how that's formed and learning what they're doing on a regular basis and even trying to anticipate that. And John Lambert's team does a superb job there. John Lambert, Kristen Goodwin, and others. Now, but how do we take those 43 trillion daily signals, if you will, and bring insights out of them so we can actually take action through the context of the customer? So the whole attack space is changing every day with geopolitics, with things that are going around the world. And so that's why it's so important for that Mystic team and that DART team to watch that world, if you will, through those 43 trillion signals. And last thing I'll say is it should give our customers comfort, confidence, if you will, that we have their back.
Charlie, what's your thought on the threat environment? I know you see it through the eyes of all the products at Microsoft as well. Just curious, I know the audience is interested in hearing your views on where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think everybody knows that they're definitely getting better organized and they're innovating fast. And the thing we're seeing that, we've seen it over a number of years, but it's really getting sophisticated is this. It is like an economy that's getting better at specialization, like what happened during the industrial age. I mean, suddenly you're seeing, the acquirers, you're seeing all the pieces, platform pieces, and so the threat side, they're definitely innovating fast, and it's also, when you think about the nation state side, they're really up in their game in trying to penetrate supply chain and infrastructure and just be in a position to do the wrong thing. And so the threat is definitely going. I mean, I think I'm optimistic because on our side, we're also developing, as Kelly was talking about, the capability of just leveraging a lot more signal, a lot more data in ways that it could never be leveraged before because of AI, because it's hard for humans to grasp the breadth of things that are going on, and you can do that with AI. And so So I think that while the threat is definitely getting much more organized and sophisticated, and actually more platform oriented, which is frightening. On the other side, we're getting far better, faster. Cloud is a huge lever in this game because suddenly you're in a spot where you can take anything you see and instantly protect instead of in the patching world of trying to get everybody to patch their stuff globally. You get to learn from what the patterns were to what you should do in posture going forward, and set that into the environment, change the infrastructure, change the application environment before the attackers show up. So there's a lot going on for us, and I'm optimistic that we're going to change the asymmetry of the whole game going forward.
Charlie, it's great to hear you say this. Over the last few years, I've talked about these three foundational pieces that I always believed. And whenever we make an investment or we do something advisory in the world of cyber national security, we look for these. I call it crowd, cloud, and AI, right? So the power of the crowd now, and Kelly, you just alluded 43, I think I called it trillion events a day. Look at the size of the telemetry Microsoft has. And most cyber companies and vendors, almost 7,000 of them, don't have a fraction of what Microsoft can see from the crowd. And then leverage, as Charlie just described, AI, machine learning, to take those signals and noise down to high fidelity alerts, and then leverage cloud to deploy and manage and hyperscale. So if there is patient zero, we can really solve it for all the potential clients in the area. Charlie and Kelly, talk a little bit about, here we have Microsoft now 15+ billion in revenue, the largest cyber company. But when you really look at it, and I saw Gartner quote this, you still only have 8.5% market share. I'm not sure how that makes you feel, but at 8.5% market share, let's just say there's a lot of room to grow in the grand scheme of Microsoft's opportunities here. And when you start to look at this market growing in the hundreds of billions, and you look at the losses measured in trillions, we have this very asymmetric theater of losses, revenues, and even market size Microsoft has. So incredible opportunity. What are the big categories that you look at, like zero trust or SASE, or, give me an area or two, Charlie, you're like, wow, this one's one we think Microsoft really should be in and should do. And then I'll do the same with you, Kelly.
Yeah, it is end to end, and I think you kind of got to do it all. And there, by the way, there will be, it's not like there's going to be one company in this thing. I came to Microsoft, not because I thought, well, Microsoft is going to be the one company that provides security to everyone in the world. It's going to be an ecosystem, but somebody's got to lead, and there has to be a platform approach to it. And I think the key piece is, you talk about shift left, we've got to get everything set up the right way. And one of the big problems is that people who are innovating and building technology, they usually don't think about security first. They think about the thing they're trying to create, the cool capability. And then suddenly security has to be retrofitted. And that, we all know that isn't the right recipe. And so getting everything into the development tools, into the tool chains, into the ways that technology is, whether it's the moment you write a line of code, making sure that it doesn't have any vulnerabilities in it, all the way to, your infrastructure is set up, with lots of baffles inside of it, so that if somebody compromises something, they can't move, they don't get much. They have to compromise a bunch of things to have success. And so I think that whole shift left world is a huge focus for us. And it's kind of natural given the history of Microsoft and all the things it provides for cloud and for developers and all. I do think that, the world you mentioned, zero trust, is really important. I will tell you, like, conditional access is a really cool thing. The idea that I'm not going to have you, type a password in to get access. And even MFA, we've seen lots of attacks that work on circumventing MFA. The key is to take all of the signal that I have and say, what should this person be allowed to do, or this machine be allowed to do, based on the accesses that I think are appropriate for the data that I see. And so I think there's a lot of work to go do in that space. And then a really important area, and Kelly touched on this earlier, is that we're having a skilling problem. Like, it's really difficult to get enough people into this game to deal with the problem. And so having intelligent agents where, first of all, you don't need as many people to do the work. And second of all, the people you do have, they don't have to be geniuses in security. They don't have to be experts on every possible platform and know how to read every kind of log. They just basically can come into it from a community college, and their intelligent assistant makes them a very productive defender from the beginning. So I think those are all really important areas for Microsoft to
Charlie, I love what you're saying. I mean, and Kelly hit on this earlier with the community colleges and the opportunities the youth has. I also been a big fan of trying to get our veterans back into this cyber game, that had a mission. These are the Wounded Warrior programs and the Tech for Vet programs. And, what can we do to bring education? And I like to say K through gray, right? It can be from early to late. And there's so many people who can be involved with this team sport that we have. And Microsoft, I give you a ton of credit for leading this, putting money into it, working with community colleges and the biggest colleges, but doing it all over the world too. So just want to call you out for that and just say thank you. Kelly, talk about, if you would, from the services point of view. I always dreamt of a day we would have like air, water, electricity, and security as a service. Like we'd plug it in and it would be basically like a service. Charlie builds all these great products, you plug it in and we kind of have that. Where are we at in that journey? And like, what do you see as the big shifts happening in your world?
Yeah, look, I think the complexity of our organizations, the companies around the world, calls for, you can't just like snap something in and automatically work, but we're getting closer, because to move from an on-premise software package to a cloud service, if you will, helps us get there a little bit quickly, because we have this the network effect. We can apply one problem to many customers and everyone get the value. But when it comes to the services, there's been an evolution. So it used to be that every CISO wanted to do their own thing and customize everything in their shop, if you will, and then has moved to, wait a minute, maybe I'm not the best skilled person, so I want to outsource it to certain people like the Accentures and the EYs of the world. But now it's evolved into, wait a minute, I really need a partner in innovation. And that is where they're coming to Microsoft and others, if you will, to figure out, how do I solve and innovate together? Because I want a partner, not a vendor. I want a partner for the long term. Because they know forklifting a package, a product from, take out a SIM tool or taking out another function, there's no value in it and it's hard to do. So they really want to make a strategic decision with a partnership of a vendor like Microsoft, so we can actually secure not only their company, but their ecosystem of their industry. And that is where we are today. Co-innovation, co-operations, if you will, sometimes with our customers.
Yeah, and by the way, I love the way you say that, Kelly, because you and Charlie and the whole Microsoft organization, in my opinion, has been one of the best leaders in what I think of as the team sport of security, right? You're a big one, but you also allow us all to integrate with you. And, the whole is much stronger than, say, one vendor. So love that. And that includes, by the way, in my opinion, and if you wanted to comment on this, I'd appreciate it too, is just public-private partnerships. You're there right now at a conference, and like, say a couple words, if you would, about how do you see government, Microsoft working together, public-private, as well as the private ecosystem?
Yeah, look, this public-private partnership we've been working on for 15 years, me and you and Kevin Mandy and a bunch of others, right? I actually see it working pretty well together. We have more to do, but I'm at this conference called the Cypher Brief, and we're doing national security, and we have basically all the agencies from the US and some other countries, plus the private sector. And the underlying theme is, this is a team sport. How do we work together to be able to solve these big problems? And I think the world, the market, us on the private sector and the governments are ready to make big bets together. And this is the first year I've seen the big bets as opposed to make little baby steps. So, there's a lot of complexity, as you know, around the world, around cyber threats, but I'm actually encouraged that we're coming together as a better team, if you will. Again, we have much more to do, but I can see us moving together. So it makes me feel good.
Charlie, I want to go to you for a minute because there's been some really amazing. I call it the big shift, but I'll explain it for a second. But like over the last 2 years, the pandemic, really created an entirely new work from everywhere, work from anywhere environment. And our traditional networks have changed dramatically, right? I mean, fiber cables, MPLS with maybe some SD-WAN breakout, like is now network as a service with edges in the cloud, security as a service layered on top, call it SASE, SSE, whatever you want to call it. How do you see Microsoft playing in all of that, right? There's an element of zero trust and CASB and DLP and a lot of sub-components to it, but Gartner thinks this is 25 billion plus growing. How do you guys see Microsoft's role in all of that? And maybe tell the audience what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are doing a lot already. When you think about, Microsoft for a very long time has done identity and access. And when you think about how this plays out with SASE and how you protect, everything in this world, it really has to start with identities, knowing who you're talking to, knowing what you're talking to, and then thinking about the dynamic way that you determine access. And so, Microsoft is the other thing. Actually, it's one of the things that had me excited about coming here, is because Microsoft does so much in the end user productivity space. Microsoft starts, you think about attackers like to go after humans to begin with. I mean, we are the weak point. We're easily fooled. I mean, boy, have I seen some phishing email that you look at it and say, my God, how would I possibly know that this isn't somebody within the company that's really trying to do something legitimate? But the ability to fool humans and get past something, get them to do things, that will just accelerate. And so all this work we do on the end user side, all the things you do in DLP and understanding the patterns, I think are really important. But I do think, this perimeter, if you will, and it's not like the eggshell kind of perimeter. It's really just deeply understanding the accesses that are going on and then deciding dynamically, what should happen and who should be able to touch what. And it's a huge investment for us. I mean, you mentioned long before I got here, the Adalom acquisition and what's happening in that space, because the world is also going to be a software as a service space. There's going to be a lot of applications out there, and you won't be able to retrofit in the inside of these applications a whole bunch of access controls and other things. So that's a really important focus for us. Now it's a rich space, and there are a lot of people in the ecosystem who do this, and we also partner. So it's important. But the area that you're describing is a fundamentally important area to apply the AI and the signal we're getting, because you get to see the signal from anywhere, and then you use that in real time to make decisions on what should happen going forward. Yep.
Charlie and Kelly, there's been a lot of questions coming in, and I want to talk about it. One more from me. And a question came in here on the Q&A chat around this, Microsoft's role in Ukraine, but just maybe comment from me. It's been really interesting from my standpoint, somewhat ominously, and, huge supporter myself of Ukrainian activities and support we can do from NightDragon. We have 5 companies pretty actively involved operationally that we've invested into from NightDragon. So it's a great honor to be a part of that. I'd love Microsoft, or two of you, to share what Microsoft's doing in Ukraine. But when you watch what's happened on the battlefield, data as a weapon, data wipers, data poisoning, this isn't a day where we steal some data and maybe, have a PCI or HIPAA problem. We're now in a whole nother generation of warfare happening in that Ukrainian market. Any stories you can tell about Microsoft Ukraine, or comment on the data weapon and information warfare that's going on today?
Yeah, I'll go first, Kelly. You can add, but yeah, there's a few stories. I mean, talking to John about one of them, they were so when the Russians were before they attacked one of the nuclear reactors, and they did. We were actually working with the folks inside of the reactor facility on a cyber breach and helping them resolve. And then the guy on the phone said, hey, I got to hang up. We're starting to get shelled. And what you realize is that this is a form of warfare. It's being integrated into the battle plan. Like this is not just, some strategic thing that goes on somewhere else. This is part of what's happening in warfare today. And another one was they were showing me some of the team had reverse engineered a bunch of the code. They were showing me the machine instructions in one of the wiperware things. And what they've done is they show me this. It displays a banner pretending to be ransomware. So you could see the display going on. Next instruction starts to write zeros over the disk, and there's no branch in between. And so you're looking at these things and realizing, there's a lot of, we'll call it weaponization of cyber going on out there that's, really, really dangerous. And I really am proud of what the team did through the Ukraine. Like they jumped really fast. They got in there. They took everything, helped the government, get into a better spot. It was just, it really made me feel good about being here.
I agree. And
what's your view on all that?
I mean, these are really good examples. And I was with 2 Ukrainian generals that were in the States just about a month ago in DC, and they had story after story that Charlie just described, that and plus many more. And John still has teams that wake up, in the middle of the night to kind of continue to help. But we're not only just helping with the battle, if you will, we're also helping rebuild the country today in a better, more resilient fashion, if you will, because, and I think everybody should really learn from what's coming out of Ukraine and Albania, I would say, because we're learning how to create a more resilient country, not just a company, not just a division or a department, if you will, but a whole country. And I think that there's some valuable lessons. So I'm really proud of what John and team has done too. I mean, and they continue to, we're still in it.
Yeah, for those in the audience who don't know all the Microsoft Ukrainian activities, there's been a lot written about it. And I know Ukrainians Cyber Command very much appreciates it, as does their MOD across the board. So thank you for all the support there. I know, Charlie, you alluded to this. I see the same thing. I call it future fusion, which is this fusion of domains where cyber almost becomes ubiquity across domains like space. We've watched attacks in space infrastructure, to your point, nuclear, where cyber and physical threats and physical and cyber threats are intermingled. There's almost a convergence of that. We got supply chain issues that clearly from a cyber can affect entire supply chains and issues related to that. The air domains, just everything kind of coming together to create a bigger and bigger market. I mean, you see it the same way, I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely.
And I would even say that General Hayden would say, there are 5 domains, land, air, space, sea, and cyber. And right now, I think we're seeing not either kinetic or cyber, but both together. That's important.
Charlie, were you going to say something there too? Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, just absolutely. I mean, it's when I look at the trend, I mean, it is actually spanning. Cyber isn't like one of those things. Cyber spans all of those areas, and we've seen the attacks on infrastructure, but what's happening is we're doing the things humans should be doing. We're digitizing everything. We're figuring out how to take our transportation systems and make them as autonomous as possible. And it's wonderful from a capability standpoint, but those capabilities, it goes back to what I said about, security being the mother of all problems. If you don't get ahead of this, what happens is some of these events will be so cataclysmic that we will be afraid to move forward, and we should move forward. These are important things for the advancement of humanity, is to be able to do these technological things. And if we don't recognize the holistic problem and protect all of it, we're gonna be in a bad spot.
Yep. Charlie and Kelly, this. October is Cyber Awareness, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Every year during my time, we've watched this get stronger and bigger as a story, media covering it. I'd like to hear your two views, on advice, maybe to CISOs, maybe to consumers, or both. Like here we have awareness. Like, what can you share with people about, awareness and education or things, advice? I'd love to hear that.
You want to go, Kelly, or me? I'm happy to start.
Go for it, Charlie.
I think the first one is we should be optimistic. I mean, we do have the ability, and are working on this in a way that over time, I think we're turning the tide. And I think living in fear is not what we want to do with this kind of moment. Like, it's not, hey, you should be hiding in a bunker somewhere. I do think it's a moment for consumers to realize that there is a lot of activity going on out there that they should be aware of, just like they're probably aware when they're walking in a bad part of town that, they need to keep their eyes open. Just awareness is a super great thing for consumers. I think for CISOs, first of all, I salute CISOs. Man, what being around them, they're missionaries. They have a really hard job because the company is mostly thinking about its customers and what they're doing with the product that they're creating or the service they're providing. And the CISO's job is to make sure that the company is also thinking about this threat and actually doing something about it. And I think, the one piece of focus I'd have if I were CISOs, one is consolidate, because simplification is a huge, huge benefit in solving the problem. So be constantly thinking about simplification, and then also be thinking about, respecting that the folks out there that are trying to innovate, they're not anti-security. They just don't have it in their frontal lobes, and they're not thinking about it all the time. And to whatever extent we can have the conversation about solving the problem for them by building into what they have, and building it in for people that are building technology, building it into the places that they're creating new software or new technology to do something, in IoT, building it into the fabric of the devices and things that are being consumed. I think CISOs, wherever they can build it in, provide the tools, and respect the fact that folks are trying to innovate. I think that's super important. It's such a great community. I have to say, I love what CISOs do and how committed they are to the problem.
By the way, I don't know if you saw this, Kelly, I'll come to you on that question in a second, but today there was some interesting news around, inertia about creating some sort of security branding, almost like Underwriter Labs when we used to plug in power to the wall. Yeah. You would have a UL like, hey, it's safe, it won't burn down your house. Now IoT devices would have a security brand to it with levels of security as well. I love the direction, right? Safety, security, wear your seatbelt, put your shoulder harness, have an airbag, have UL there, have a security brand, different levels of security. So another step in the right direction, I think, during Cyber Awareness Month. Kelly, what's your view or advice to CISOs? I know you deal with them every day.
Yeah.
Lots of times.
Look, first of all, I love that executive order that came out for the labeling, which is really important, that UL sort of thing. That's something that we started working on 5 years ago at the Aspen Institute. So I'm glad to see it come out, because it will give customers the ability to understand a baseline that, yes, these products have a level of security. So that's really important. Okay. My advice to CISOs is one thing, and then maybe to the consumers. For the CISOs, I think the CISOs are really doing a good job. And look, I empathize with them because I'm a recovering one myself, I'll say. And I think that what they have to do is learn the operations of the business so they can understand the risks that they're going to take, because they can't create Fort Knox. They have to be able to balance risk and cost and operational impact. So learn the business. On the consumer side, I do think there's a message for everyone, from the teenage kids sharing too much over social media to everyone else. But my advice, that practical advice, is for everyone: go freeze your credit with the 3 credit bureaus. Because if you do just that one thing, you can probably solve a lot of pain in the future. So that would be my consumer side and my CISO side.
Oh, I love it, Kelly. Thank you. And by the way, absolutely the case. I tell people that all the time as well. Just, basic hygiene, but really important hygiene as well. Hey, last question for you gentlemen, because I know we're at the top of the hour and we have tons of questions coming in. I'll tell the audience, we'll try to respond to them whatever way we can afterward. But, you know, Charlie and Kelly, listen, you know, it's a great honor to be here and talk to you two. You're both like gentlemen, professional, you know, been in this space for a long time. You know, what are you looking forward to? Is there anything coming up that, you know, I know, you know, hopefully, and my fingers crossed here, we have some peace coming up with Ukraine and Russia that, you know, is really an end of that era and things going on. You know, is there technology? You mentioned AI, Charlie, quantum. You know, what do you see future that could be a game changer on that symmetry of losses and revenues and things? Like, what do you look forward to most as you innovate at Microsoft?
Well, for me, it is what we're going to be able to do with AI, and it's getting close. Like the acceleration in what we were able to do with it, the capabilities in it are happening fast, and I am looking forward to a near future where we can do some things to just totally change the equation in the kind of people that can engage in security. The numbers of people that we need to do the same thing, the breadth of things that we can monitor, and the speed at which we can respond. There are going to be some advancements in AI coming real soon, and I think this is a fundamental game changer for us. And so, you know, quantum is a little further out. I think quantum computers, anyway. My belief is they're going to come. They aren't going to be in the next few years. The challenge, of course, there is that when they finally show up with millions of qubits, unfortunately, they're going to be able to crack encryption that we have today. And so unfortunately, we do have to think about at least the encryption side today very carefully and plan for that day, because it will come someday, even if it's, you know, 8-9 years out, it's still going to come. And then everybody will look back and say, oh, look, I can see this stuff.
I'm looking from you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Last words from you, Kelly. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for, look, it's great that we're moving to a platform to make it simpler for CISOs to secure their business. That's awesome. We're also looking forward to better third-party risk management systems, because right now, most CISOs don't have any visibility into the third parties. They're blind to them, but we're getting to that spot. The third thing is that AI thing that Charlie talked about, so we can actually understand behavioral issues and how do we detect problems better. Post-quantum encryption agility, which is really important. I think we got to move on that, not the quantum computer that Charlie is talking about, right? But the agility on the encryption function is super important. And the last thing I'll say is this confidential computing. Like, how do we actually take the data on the chipset and slice it up to the benign data on public of the chip, if you will, and the sensitive data unreachable by the attacker. And so I'm excited about where we're going to actually implement some good controls in place for our customers to make their jobs easier and safer. But we all know with every innovation comes the good and the bad. We didn't invent the shipwreck until we invented the ship, if you will. So there's a lot to do, but I think that we can be ahead of the game. And this is why we need scale, and we need Microsoft, if you will, to solve these problems in the world.
Charlie and Kelly, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you and your honesty, your humility. I wish you both the best of luck at Microsoft. We'll be watching Microsoft closely. I know everybody who follows the cybersecurity industry has been amazed at the success, but also proud to be a part of the Microsoft community as well. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. We'll record this, we'll post it later, and look forward to working with you guys for a long time myself here from my NightDragon side too. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, gentlemen.
Dave, thanks for having us.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.